Morning, how are you? That's good. I'm good. Everybody all ready? Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. Yesterday there were two very important developments that I think are worth discussing for a couple of minutes with you. One, the Senate advanced legislation having to do with property tax freeze and also school funding. Very important that we have a property tax freeze. Obviously, we're advocating that. And we also have said we're willing to include school funding changes as part of our reforms right now, rather than waiting till next year, which was our original intent. The legislation being advanced, though, missing key elements that are absolutely critical in our view to deal with property taxes, and that is getting local control of costs, whether it's bidding, contracting, what gets bargained, what doesn't. That should be controlled locally. That shouldn't be mandated by Springfield. And to make that point, separately, Forrest Claypool, the new head of CPS, came out very strongly and clearly and said, we need help. We need the teachers to pay their share of their pension obligation, because they haven't been for a while. And the teachers union immediately flipped around and said, no way in heck, we haven't done that for a while and we're not going to start now. Forget about it. We're not going to agree to that. Leaders in Chicago have already come to us and asked for state help to get the pension contribution discussion out of collective bargaining and make it required that the teachers union in Chicago has to pay their share of the employee share of the pensions. The right way to, and we included it at the city leaders' request in our draft pension reform legislation. But the real answer, the best answer, and what we've been advocating now all the way through, is to give local control of this issue. If Chicago public schools need the ability to have certain things taken out of collective bargaining, they should be able to do that. The schools don't belong to insiders in the system. They belong to the taxpayers and the local citizens. That's the whole point. And rather than doing a special one-off deal on one issue for Chicago, the right answer is allow all school districts in Illinois, all local governments in Illinois, to have these decisions made by them at their level. Then Chicago wouldn't be in this fix. That's what we've been saying all along. And we have included that ability in our property tax freeze legislation. It's critically important. If we don't include that in our legislation and we freeze property taxes for 2 years, that's good to get a handle on property taxes and stop the increases that have been going on and burdening our economy and small business owners and our homeowners. But as soon as the 2 years is up, they're going to pop up and frankly accelerate in a lot of communities beyond what they otherwise would have. It's really not a true fix to the problem. It's a small step at a fix, but the real fix is get local control of costs. We've been saying that all the way through, and this is proof with the city of Chicago's situation where they've asked. They need help. They could just negotiate with the teachers union and say, as part of our collective bargaining process, we want you to pay your pension. And the teachers union says, no, we're not. And the teachers union's got all the power. They can't. They won their strike a couple of years ago. What was it, 4 years ago? And CPS has already said, boy, we can't stand up to them on this. They're going to beat us on it. We need help from the state. Same thing happened 4 years ago. CPS came to the state and said, take school length out of collective bargaining for us so we can get that longer, because we can't win that on their own. And the state did that then. We've got to stop these special one-off deals for Chicago, and we need to get a level playing field for all communities where they can control these issues. And for those communities who want to collectively bargain everything and keep the status quo, terrific. We're not saying you can't. Point is, the schools belong to local citizens, local voters and taxpayers, local residents, and the local governments do too. They should decide. They should control these issues. That's the critical point, and that what happened yesterday makes the point crystal clear. Chicago shouldn't be getting special deals. All communities should be treated the same. We've got to empower local voters to get a handle on our property taxes, which is our number one most uncompetitive, problematic tax, is our local property tax. With that, I'll open up to questions. Yes, sir.
You're talking about wanting to have a level playing field with schools across the state, Chicago, the rest of the state. A number of people said that the current funding formula is a fair playing field. Are you going to address that at some point with this as well?
Yes, we are. We are talking. We have been talking with President Cullerton about school funding formula. Right now, we're working out the timing. When do we want to have a new bill introduced? We've agreed we're going to form a commission to take this on and deal with it. We're talking through the mechanics right now. I do think that our existing state funding formula is broken. I don't support taking money from some school districts and giving it to others. What I do support is raising overall state support for public education, because I think you know Illinois is dead last. We're 50 out of 50 among the states for general revenue support for education. That's wrong. I'd like to move us up significantly, because there's nothing more important that we do with public tax dollars than fund education. And I want to increase it, and I want to make it more equitable. I especially want to increase state support for lower income schools and the low income districts and rural districts that just don't have the resources to be able to properly fund a full school curriculum.
Governor, if that's the case, why did the Republicans reject the extra GSA funding that the Senate passed yesterday?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with what was rejected on that.
Well, there were some Republicans that voted for it, but not all. It was basically they gave $75 million more. You had said when you signed the education budget that you didn't think enough money was going to schools. Mm-hmm. So Democrats proposed a bill that would give schools more money, $75 million. It did pass the Senate, but there was a divided GOP vote. If that gets to your desk, would you sign that?
I'd have to study. I haven't read every element of the bill. The critical things that I'm focused on is trying to get the structural reform and local control. School funding's got to change, and one way or another, we're going to change it.
On the structural funding, Governor, it's very clear that you want local governments to be able to figure out what they collectively bargain with their employees. It's also pretty clear to people who've watched the process here for a while, and you have Democratic majorities, still very big ones, who say they don't want to do that, core beliefs again. They're not going to do it.
If that was core belief, they wouldn't be doing this for Chicago, where they take things out of collective bargaining.
As you say, it's special for Chicago.
Special for Democrats when they want it. I got it.
But my guess is, I mean, people who look at this say they're not going to do what you want. So aren't you, by insisting on that change for local governments all over the state, keeping the state in this limbo in the second month of what?
We should not have a situation where the legislature is just cherry picking what they want to do. We should treat the people of Illinois equitably and fairly, and stop doing special deals for Chicago. This is not Illinois should not be a dictatorship from Chicago. And so here's the point. Speaker Madigan could, if he wanted to hike taxes, he could. He's not been willing to do that. But he's also not willing to deal with reforms. The only time he wants reform if it's a special request from Chicago, Democrats in Chicago. That's not the right way to deal with this. If we don't fix this for Chicago, and we are advocating a true comprehensive fix, what Forrest Claypool and the mayor have made clear is this is going to force a massive tax hike. This is going to force layoffs. This is going to force higher class sizes. And this is being caused by Speaker Madigan and the out-of-control budget and the misspending and mismanagement of the process. Speaker Madigan owns this, and he's got to be held accountable for what's going on here.
What about the State Museum? There was talk voted today, I believe it was 7-2, to keep it open. You have sent out some layoff notices, apparently, the AFSCME and others. Your thoughts on the State Museum and all the arguments that we've heard about? They've got federal contracts, they've got Native American remains, they've got all of these interlocking things that may not be worth the $4.8 million in savings that you're hoping to get.
I certainly would prefer not to have to close the museum. But we've got to manage within our means. Right now, we don't have a budget. We're running shorter resources, and we've got to take management actions to get through this process as best we can. I don't want to have to make cuts. I don't want to have to close facilities. I've recommended reforms, and I've said I'm open to revenue changes, et cetera. And so far, all the folks have done is pass an unbalanced budget, given us no resources, And it's just more, and we've been doing this in Illinois for years. This is not the first time. This last year was not the first time. We are constantly kicking the can, not reforming, and not passing true balanced budgets. We've just got to change, and now's the time.
Speaker Madigan said the government should not be in the business of diminishing wages for middle-class families, saying that in response to some of your proposals. What's your response to that?
Boy, I don't know where he's getting me diminishing middle-class wages. I want a booming economy. The one way we get incomes growing is to have Illinois' economy strong and vibrant. We have been hurting our middle class. He's always saying, Rauner wants to hurt the middle class and I want to help. You got to look at what's going on in Illinois. Our middle class has been suffering for years. We've lost 97,000 union jobs the last 10 years. That's not me. Madigan has run the government for the last 10 years. We've lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs the last 15 years. He's run the government the last 15 years, not me. I can get the economy booming if we'll make workers' comp change, if we'll get tort reform, if we'll get property tax reform. We can get a booming economy. And if we have true balanced budgets, which he's been managing the budget process and he doesn't do it, and business loses confidence. The middle class will grow when we have a booming economy. And then he'll argue, well, we need more regulations and more government support for wages. What we need is growth. You know what? Texas right now, Texas is booming. And it's not because of energy. It's because they are pro-growth policies. A lot of folks here say, well, they have lower wages there, and we don't want to compete with Texas because that would be a race to the bottom. I hear that all the time. Folks say, Illinois shouldn't do that. We shouldn't compete with Texas or Tennessee. That would be a race to the bottom. Let's be clear. Folks don't like to talk about it. When you look at average family incomes in Texas compared to Illinois, on the top, Illinois looks a little higher. But when you adjust for cost of living and taxes, they have net higher take-home pay average in Texas. Now, I'm not advocating that we do everything Texas does at all. I think we should have social services supporting our most vulnerable much more than Texas does, and I don't want to eliminate our income tax. Texas has no income tax. I don't advocate that. However, they're pro-growth. They're building their middle class. You know what? Frankly, a lot of Illinois residents, especially lower-income families, I know some African Americans, others here in Illinois, they're leaving Illinois. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to Tennessee. They're moving to Georgia. They're moving to South Carolina. Why? That's where the jobs are. Chicago used to be a jobs mecca. Now we're a jobs desert because our policies are not attracting business. It is not about more regulations. It's not about more artificial supports. It's about growth and a booming economy.
Governor, you're pushing for a veto override, or for your veto, pardon me, of the union arbitration law to stand.
I'm sorry. So could you repeat?
You're pushing for your veto of the...
Oh, 1229, yeah.
1229.
Yeah.
You're pushing for that to stand. So at what point would you consider a lockout for...
No circumstance. Let me be clear. I have no interest in doing a lockout. If I wanted to do a lockout of AFSCME, I would have already done it. I have absolutely no interest. And I've said it publicly and right here. I'll put it in writing. No lockout. Have no interest in that whatsoever. I hope we don't have to take a strike. I do not want that, but I don't control that. We're going to negotiate in good faith. We've already worked out a deal with the Teamsters. I'd like us to get a deal similar to the Teamsters deals with AFSCME. So far, AFSCME has demanded very big pay hike, pension benefits, health improvements, tough work rules, and they have not made any concessions. They've just kind of said, we've told you what we want, we're not going to talk further about it. We've made very little, really no progress, and we've compromised off our initial proposals. So we're stuck. Let me be clear what's going on with the Senate Bill 1229. I met with President Cullerton about it yesterday, and I made it crystal clear. That bill, Senate Bill 1229, is a direct frontal assault on the taxpayers of Illinois. That bill is a declaration of war against the taxpayers in Illinois. Nowhere in American history that I can tell has AFSCME said, hey, take away our collective bargaining. Let's turn everything over to an arbitrator and let them decide it, not elected. They've never done that in history, okay? Why are they doing that now, and why are they doing it for just a 4-year period? So they're saying, do that for 4 years. Why? I hope it's not related to the fact that, as far as I can tell, I'm the first governor in Illinois history who hasn't taken campaign contributions from them. I hope that's not related. But you know what? I'm elected to do a job, and that's represent taxpayers in good faith, fair collective bargaining. What we can't do is take away my ability, my executive authority as governor, to represent taxpayers in good faith negotiations. That's an outrage. This is the worst bill I've ever heard about in Illinois, and we've passed some bad legislation. This is a frontal assault. We can't allow it to stand, and the taxpayers need to be represented. I want to negotiate in good faith, happy to commit no lockout, and I've already committed nobody takes a salary cut. There's no cuts. We're not going to cut salaries. But we need to change compensation so it's more based upon productivity, effectiveness, rather than purely seniority. And we need a more fair and balanced system, and taxpayers need to be represented. For us to even think that we would take away the governor's ability to negotiate in good faith, turn it over to an arbitrator, and let's be clear, in Illinois, our arbitrators have been selected into the pool. The vast preponderance of them are bureaucrats who come from labor union backgrounds, and we want that type of a person to decide $7 billion in our budget, 20% of our budget? Come on. What are we thinking? This is horrible legislation. I'm adamantly against it. I made that clear to the president yesterday.
Last question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Governor, will you support?
Go ahead.
We don't have a budget in place. I mean, it's the multi-billion-dollar elephant in the room. The state fair is next week, and that is something that has to be put on because of the statute and the Constitution. Are you worried that this impasse is going to affect what happens to the state fair?
I hope not. I've not heard of any impacts at this point. I'm a big advocate for the state fair. It's a very important economic driver and just a celebration of all the great things that we all love about Illinois. Right now, the fair is going forward, and hopefully everyone from around the state and around America will come and celebrate here in Springfield and then in DuQuoin. I certainly look forward to that. Thanks very much, everybody.